Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name is Lorene, and not sure what you can see there, but Taz is walking back and forth, so you might see his big black plume of a tail. He's got this little box right beside where I'm sitting that has, it's just a box with a towel in it, but the sun comes in from the door, so he likes to sit in that, and I had my tea balanced on it, and he decided it was a good time to, rub his cheek against it. Well, I will be talking about books, but I have a cat story for you. Last week after I finished the videoing, it was a beautiful day. We were outside on the back deck, and the cats were the Taz was on his leash. It's got one of those neck and chest harnesses, and it's on a clothesline, so that way the big line to the clothesline will just go along, and he can go wherever he wants to for the garden. And the little one, Missy, she was not wanting to do this, so she had run into the basement, and I was bringing Taz in, so I had the kitchen door open for a little bit, just a little bit. And as I'm getting him unbuckled, don't I see this little orange and black tail go whipping past me? And she had escaped. Like, where the little bugger came from, she had to have run pretty darn fast, and discovered she is fast. So I sort of had him in one hand, tried to grab for her. She squiddled out, down the stairs, whomp. So I stick my head and the cat back in the kitchen door. Steve, you better come. And he's like, what? So Steve's great when you need a plan and you need to execute a plan, but in that kind of instantaneous explosion of an emergency, he doesn't get it. So it's like, come now! And he's like, why? What are we interested in? And I think, no, emergency. And Lewis picks up speed a little bit. But then he gets to where the emergency is, as in the cat has taken off. And Steve has heard this story before, so probably not pleased that I'm telling it, but it's funny. And so he comes bursting out the door, what? And I'm thinking, in an emergency, you don't have time to explain. You just go, cat, gone, and then deal, right? And he's more like, oh, which cat? Anyhow, he didn't have shoes on. And he goes tearing through the neighbor's property, which is pretty much disused and cleaned up once in a blue moon. And he goes through all this scrubby type of, what's that called? I can't think what the plant is. It's the kind of thing that just keeps on growing into other people's yards. It's supposed to be decorative, but it's just horrible. Anyhow, there's all kinds of hidden branches and twigs. He's on his stocking feet. And the cat turns out to be under the sort of kitty corner to us neighbor's deck. And we're calling to her, and she just because we're there, she relaxes. She goes, oh, this is great. I like this nook. And my people are here. So finally, I said to Steve, this is ridiculous. We can't stay here all day. Let's go back to the house and call her. Let's shake the kibbles and see. So he can't quite let it go. Steve's not someone who just can drop a thing and let it go. He's very much let's get it finished kind of a thing. Well, he decides to pursue the cat a little bit more with, nudging her out from underneath. And sure enough, she takes off and he takes off, and 3 houses later, and I'm like, stop that. You're chasing her further away from home. She's not going to find her way home. So instead of taking the cat back, I take Steve back because he's actually the bigger danger. So get him home, and I'm at the back fence line, and I'm doing some weeding and just calling. And the only way that I was able to calm her down when she first came to us was with the phrase, Missy, you're a good girl, you're a good girl. So in my calmest of calm, loud voices, I'm shouting in the neighborhood, Missy, you're a good girl. Come on, honey. And so I can't actually see what's happening because there's a garage in the way. I don't know whether she's coming around the garage or what is happening. So I give up. I'm thinking, well, all right, it's lunchtime. I'm hungry. She can either hear my voice or she can't. If she can't hear my voice, maybe she'll think I should go back. So I'm doing all this cat thinking for her. And we get back to the deck. I make my sandwich. I go outside and I see this little orange tail. And Steve was sort of in the neighborhood, and I said, oh, I think she's coming back. So he's like, out the door, I gotta go see what's happening. And it's like, no, you're gonna scare her away. Anyway, she thinks it's a great game. So I figure finally I get Steve to just not go after her. Eventually she comes in. He's standing in the kitchen door, like in the kitchen, but behind the door where it would close, but the door is open. And she comes kind of skittering up, and I kind of move behind in order to urge her through the door without touching her, because that would be a disaster. And so he reaches down to pick her up, and I've got the screen door, which still has glass in it, doesn't have the screen in it yet, and I slam the glass door shut, and he's bending down to pick up the cat. Boink! It's just like, even though we've rescued the cat, we have killed the man. So that was our adventure that has nothing to do with books, except when it was all over, we went out. We usually don't have our little afternoon drink until, like 3 or 4 o'clock. I think it was about 12:30, and we're both like, it's time for a scotch. Let's go outside and read. So that was one adventure, and the other adventure is that I'm by myself. Steve is in Ottawa at the moment visiting our daughter, and then heading to Montreal. And my best friend Cheryl, in about 4 hours, is headed off to France for 2 weeks. And I am here by my lonesome. There are no other voices except mine, and you can only say, Missy, Missy, you're a good girl, so many times before you just conclude, I'm pretty goddamn bored. So anyhow, one of the benefits of being by myself is that I sleep through the night, and it takes me a long time to fall asleep, but once I'm there, I'm generally okay. If Steve isn't snoring or the cat isn't doing something, I'm sure you all know that once in a while you just get a really good sleep. I got a really good sleep. I was awake by 6:30, which is about an hour and a half way too early. So I have all my chores done, the cats are dealt with. I'm decided against dressing myself. This sweater is hiding my pajamas. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is going to be a very long day. I think, yeah, because I'm already pretty much through 90% of what I need to do. When I'm finished with you guys, it's just editing. And so books, I guess you're wondering, was she ever going to stop driveling on? I do have something coming my way. This will be for tonight, I think. I love Hornbook. I love having me a big magic marker and checking things and circling things and folding pages. And this is their, oh my goodness, look, it says the Newbery Centennial. So I guess this works out really nicely. Because actually what I'm supposed to be doing today is, now that I actually think about it, I'm supposed to be announcing my plans for the Newbery Challenge. Pause while I go get my book with all the information that I can't remember. Okay, so if you have been watching earlier videos, you know that I, for the month of June, do awards for different awards. I do awards for different awards. That's terrific. Usually I do a variety of awards, the Caldecott and the Newbery and the Prince, and I think there's a couple other, 1 or 2 Canadian ones that I try to get in. And I just read either the winner, if that's all that's been announced, or I read the winner and the honorable mentions. And this year I've discovered I was quite far behind on my Newbery books. I think I thought that I was pretty much up to date. Turns out I missed a good part of a decade. So the challenge that I'm offering is for people to choose 1 or more years of the Newbery collection of award winners and shortlist if you want to, prior, including 2005 and earlier. This gives us a 20-year perspective on what those winners were like, and we can read them with a fair amount of what's the word? Like the marketing and the hype and all that kind of stuff is gone. We can just read them slightly out of context, if that makes sense. So I'm choosing the years 2003, 2004, and 2005. And the reason for that is I've read a little bit of each. I've read a little bit of each year, so it's not. I'm not looking at 15 books. I think it works out to about 8 books or something like that. And 2 of them I can't get at my local library. So, so the challenge is pick a year, prior to 2005 or 2005. You can read the winner, or you can read the winner and the short list, or just read what you haven't read. And the goal is to just discover the book afresh, if you've read it before, or to try and imagine it in today's context. What surprises you? What's unexpected about those books? I don't really want to discuss, whether it still has merit 20 years later. No, I just accept that it was a good book for the time that it was chosen, and what was unexpected in that book. What really particularly grabbed your attention? That's it. It's a pretty simple challenge. And I think I actually have no idea how to work the next part, which is I'm assuming that we will talk about it in the comments. I'm not going to do a live read or anything like that. This is my first steps into doing this sort of thing. So yeah, I guess I have some learning to do. If any of you guys have advice on how to make a challenge more interesting, put it in the comments. I'll be glad to incorporate it the next time. So basically by the end of June, it's over. You might accomplish this whole challenge in one book, or you might find, like me, with 8 books, it's gonna take me 2 or 3 weeks to get through the whole thing. The other thing I recommend is going to the library and getting your books, not purchasing anything. Most of these books, because they're Newbery winners, should be on your library shelves in the children's section. So, and none of them are hot right now. So it's not like whatever was, this year is flying off the shelves. So I think there shouldn't be a ton of lineup around it. Okay, so I think that is pretty much everything that I can think of. As each week goes, I will tell you what I'm reading for that year, so that there's something to look forward to for you guys. Now, the other thing I'll be reading are my books for my different book clubs. So the Older Ladies Book Club, we are reading Enchanted April by Elizabeth Van Arnhem. We were able to get this from the library as a book club kit. It's a charming book. It was written in 1922. Was it 1922? Yeah, 1922. And Elizabeth Van Arnhem has written other books, Elizabeth and Her German Garden. I think this one is her most famous, and I believe that, I can never remember her full name, Helen Bon something Carter, played one of the characters in a movie. It was a really charming movie. And my girlfriend Cheryl, who's in France drinking wine, remembers that the local theater put this on as a performance, and it was really quite charming. So I think that it just can't fail. I think it's one of those really gonna be a nice reads books. The other one I'm reading, which is in complete contrast, is Policing State Violence in Canada from Slavery to the Present, Black Lives by Robin Maynard. And I guess I'm on about page 30, something like that. It's a tough book. I read Just Mercy's last 2 years ago, I think, which was about incarceration experiences and the judicial process for American Blacks primarily, or quite often people with mental disabilities would also kind of fall into this category, or they might not necessarily be Black, but they would have very similar legal experiences. And that was turned into a movie that really only told a very small section of the book. And I won't go on any more about that. I think I reviewed it in the past, so you might be able to find it. I'm not going to look. You can go look. So anyhow, this is the same idea. And one of the things I did not realize is just how much slavery there was in Canada, because I always think of Canada as Canada. I keep forgetting there was a period prior to our Confederation where we were a British colony. So anything that was happening in Britain would be happening in Canada. Therefore, we had slaves. But we didn't have them on the scale of America, which is somehow how we give ourselves permission to think there isn't really a Black problem in Canada. So it's just opening my eyes up to the history, and I'm sure because of reading Just Mercy, I don't think I'm going to be too surprised by what I'm reading in here, but it's very nice to get it from a Canadian perspective. It's a tough book. I can only read about 10 pages at a time, mostly because of information overload. what was the other book? Oh, the other book I didn't bring over, it's I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, which I have a sneaky suspicion, if I haven't read it, I have read one that is very much like it. So I'm leaving it for last so that I can, if I have read it, I'll just tear through it. And okay, I also finished 2 books, Bellman and Black by Diana Setterfield, and she wrote The 13th Tale, which I haven't read and I didn't really like the description of. However, we did read for our book club, the Woozles book club, several years ago. The other one, where is it? I guess these were written before that. It was something about the river. Anyway, it was dreadful. Oh my God. Oh my God. I think it was voted worst book of the year for my book club. So I didn't clue into that. This book I liked for the first 50%. I still finished it. We get to know William, who this takes place in sort of just early industrialization England, and he is he is the grandson of a man who owns a textile mill, and William has got the capacity to look forward and figure out how the mill can be more productive. And he's a happy-go-lucky kind of guy. Everything's moving for him pretty smoothly. Then something happens, and he is the opposite. So we see in the first half, we see William's humanity, and then in the second half, we see his sort of increasing mechanization. It's an interesting premise. I think that's what kept me to the book, is that I was just curious to watch his descent into his self-imposed machinery. I don't mean that literally. I mean that was the way he was thinking. He was a likable character the first half. He was completely empty in the second half, and there really wasn't anything that he was doing that made him redeemable. Had we met the second half William in the beginning, I would have DNF'd the book for sure. But I kept thinking, you know, something's going to happen to either reclaim him as a human, or there's this kind of slightly supernatural thing that might be happening with Rooks, which are also ravens. They're like in the same family. So if you don't know a rook, think raven. So this sort of slightly twisted, unknown relationship from William's point of view with these ravens, Rooks. Maybe it's a curse, maybe it's the supernatural, what is exactly happening? Was pretty unsatisfying. So anyhow, yeah, I gave it a 3 out of 5. It's the kind of book that if I didn't have anything else on the bookshelf, I would read. So didn't love it. The other one that I read is the second book in the Finishing School series by Gail Carriger. It's Curtsies and Conspiracies, and it's also fun. It's a early YA. The protagonist is about 15, I think, and it's taking place in the dirigible finishing school for young ladies in sort of the Victorian era, and it's steampunky, and they don't have electricity. They're all more mechanizations, and it was just equally a romp. There's a vampire and a werewolf, and the boys' school joins the girls' school because they're off to England for sort of a very interesting science event that they're going to be able to witness. And so there's a mysterious prototype, and there's intrigue and conspiracies and defamation and petticoats. So that was kind of fun. Well, that's it for me. Oh no, I did have another question for those of you who have lots and lots of books. Because Steve is away, I went up into the attic, and there are a number of books that are mostly mine for the most part, or they were the kids, but they were mine and I gave them to the kids. And I've just thought, well, nobody's going to read these anymore. Some of them are Nancy Drew. I tried to go back into Nancy Drew, didn't love it. So I have this box of things, Where's Waldo, you know, and just thought, well, there are a lot of kids out there who could probably use this. And sometimes what I do is I put them on the step outside, because we have a whole bunch of young kids going past to the local school. They'll pick the books up, but these ones are kind of very out of date. Nancy Drew, no one's really reading anymore. Anyhow, I've got this box to go to the Salvation Army equivalent, and Steve is always over my shoulder about, are you sure you want to get rid of that book? Do you want to get rid of that book? So when you've made, the question kind of is, when you've made the decision to let a book go, do you have one or more people in your family who second guess it for you? I mean, I really have a hard time letting go of a book in the first place. I worry that it's just going to end up in the garbage, and I just, I worry about the waste part, and then I think, is anybody really going to read this? So I have all this kind of guilt attached to this poor forlorn book, and it doesn't help that there's someone second guessing me every time. So Steve hasn't been traveling very much in the last 2 years. I'm sure he's going to watch this video and make a comment. So while he's out of the house, I have gathered up these books. It's ready to go to the Sally Ann, but I find it so refreshing. I don't have him over my shoulder going, are you sure you want to get rid of that book? Yes, I'm sure I want to get rid of that book. He's got a pile of books up there where I was pretty sure we needed to get rid of them. He wasn't. So they are still up there. They still remain, should he ever decide to check and see whether I'm lying. And so in our house, there's kind of this unspoken rule of don't touch any of Steve's books. You can store them, but they have to go up in the attic, whereas my books, I can do with what I want. But there's always comments. So do any of you have sort of a shared practice of unhauling books, or are you free and you can let them go on your own? So that's it for me. I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true. I hope you don't wake up at 6:30 in the morning and find all your chores done and the rest of the day looming ahead of you looking boring as shit, and there's still the rest of the week to go. So that's it for me and Taz and his tail. Bye-bye for now.